Let's start off by taking a listen to this.
Now be careful.
Hey! No stairway. Denied.
There's lore behind that gag. It's actually based on a real sign that hung in a real store called Steve's Music. And Steve's Music, I mean, this is a music store that first opened in Montreal in 1965 and has since expanded to Toronto and Ottawa and became this hub for generations of musicians who are seeking out new and vintage gear. But this past weekend, Steve's announced that they will be closing all but one of their 5 stores. The one that will remain open is the one in Montreal. Danny Marks is an award-winning blues guitarist and longtime Steve's patron, and he's here to tell us what this news says about music retail in Canada. Hello, Danny.
Great to be with you, Rad. And wow, super to be in the building again. What a nice energy.
I love your energy already.
Okay.
Danny, I mean, I need to know, though, like, what is your first reaction when you heard that these Steve's stores are closing to kind of focus more on online sales?
The end of an era for us, because Steve's is like family. So in the olden days in Toronto, there was Eaton's and there was Simpson's, like Macy's and Gimbel's in New York, the 2 big companies and the 2 big retail outlets. In Toronto and in Canada, there was Long and McQuaid, which started off with one tiny store at 803 Yonge Street, and there was Steve's. Well, Long and McQuaid was the shirt and tie guys, and Steve's was the T-shirt, and hey, we can cut you a deal, brother. It was family, and the family spread from Montreal to Toronto. Well, Long and McQuaid is family too, right? Jack Long. So it is, but it's the end of an era, Rad.
And, you know, I do want to hear more about your history with Steve's, and I think the best place to actually start is right here.
Here I am, stuck in the city, still going nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
You, of course, know that tune. That's the Toronto rock group Edward Bear with their song You, Me, and Mexico. And that guitar solo you just heard was performed by my guest, Danny Marks. And Danny, you performed that on a guitar that you bought at the original Steve's in Montreal. So what do you remember about that experience?
That was a fantastic time for us. I believe the year would have been 1969. So doing the math, I was 18 years old. We were on tour. We went to Montreal because in those days, Toronto and Montreal were joined. At one point, Montreal was a bigger city than the Big Smoke. And so we went to Montreal to play somewhere. And for whatever reason, we went down to the pawn shop area of that city. And there were guys standing on the front doorway, hey, come on, I got the deal for you, calling you in. It was unlike Toronto, so unabashed, you could say. And so we went to Steve's, and I saw this beautiful red Gibson 1968 SG Standard, still a very popular guitar with the young players of today. And I said, you know what, I'll take it. They cut me a deal like Steve's was wont to do. And I kept that guitar that was, I don't like to use the word, but I will, my iconic guitar through the years of Edward Bear. And hearing that solo, it takes me right back to the recording studio and coming up with that. Beautiful, Rad. Thanks for playing that.
That sounds like a beautiful memory. But of course, like that wasn't your only time going to Steve's, right? So what kept you going back there?
Well, Steve's was the center of the Queen Street scene for musicians. And, Queen was kind of run down for a while in the 70s, and then it started to get really artsy, and it's sort of exiting that, and that's what a lot of people are crying about now. It's like, this is one of our last of those original institutions that used to represent the art part of Steve's, of Queen Street. So Steve's was like a sort of, almost like a dive bar is as a music store. You'd go in and the guys would be, hey, how you doing? And maybe you'd have a sandwich with Jerry in the back, or John would show you the latest. And they were always friendly, and it was always a social scene. You could hang out, because in those days we hung out at these music stores. We'd sit down, we'd jam. You could try the guitars. No Stairway to Heaven, but everything else was fine.
It's so nice that you're talking about this, oh, hey, how you doing vibe, and these guys are talking about a sandwich in the back and whatnot. Because, when we think about the clip we played earlier from Wayne's World, I mean, that gag it is riffing on some of the sentiment around Steve's, because the store has a bit of a reputation for, let's say, prickly customer service at times. So did you ever experience that?
Well, let me tell you what. I went to buy a hat downstairs here, and I felt there was some prickly customer experience because I think that's what's happening in retail. On the way here, Rad, today, I took the subway, and everyone who's not sitting with somebody is staring down at their phones, looking very sad. So almost any time you go into a retail store, the person doesn't want to look up from their phone or their computer to address a human being. Hello, human in the room, And now I'm hearing that AI has a social media site where robots are talking to other robots. No humans, please prove CAPTCHA that you're not a human and you can talk with us. So at Steve's, when you used to go to a record store in the olden days, it was the same thing, sort of snobbery. You want ABBA? Come on, where's your Steely Dan and Little Feat? Well, some people like ABBA. Now at Steve's, I felt it was pretty good as any other music store. Usually these guys that work in them are in all music stores. I'm generalizing a bit, but they're musicians. They'd rather be playing, but they're supplementing their income, saying so. And sometimes you have to work without a net. And my parents told me, Danny, you need something to fall back on. You can't just go and be a musician. But we'd seen A Hard Day's Night. And I said, that looks like a good job. I'd like to do that. And I did. And I'm still doing it, Rad. But Steve's, you'd have to get through sometimes there'd be a prickly salesperson. But usually they were very friendly. And I also remember a woman named Shelley. And Shelley was the woman who kind of, like Moneypenny in the James Bond, she was the one who knew where everything was. All the bodies were buried. And it really was family. So sure, in every family there's a few prickly relatives, but no, it was just like anywhere else.
Right. Well, here's to Shelley and the end of an era, Steve. Thank you so much. Sorry, Steve, I'm calling you the store name. Danny, thank you so much. Thank you so much for talking to us about
Rad,
this.
Really, it's a delight. And I'm watching you work. I'm watching you doing the interviews. And I wish you the very best for ongoing success in this realm.
I will take any and all praise. Thank you, Danny. So Danny Marks is an award-winning guitarist. He's also the host of Blues FM. That airs Saturday nights on 91.1 Jazz FM in Toronto and online everywhere at jazz.fm. And that's it for the podcast today. I'm Radheyan Simonpillai sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion, and I'll see you tomorrow.